I remember the exact moment my world cracked open like a mirror smashed in slow motion, shards catching the light before falling into darkness. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and I had just signed the final paperwork transferring my late grandfather's estate into my name. He wasn't just family, he was the only person who ever truly believed in me. When the lawyers told me the amount over $750,000 in assets, I sat there, stunned. Not because of the money, but because I could almost hear my grandfather's voice saying, "Now go build the life you've always dreamed of, kid." And I was going to. I had plans. I was going to open my own small business, get out of the suffocating 9-to-5, and finally feel like I had control over something. But more than anything, I was going to marry Lena, my fiancée of 2 years. We'd met at a charity fundraiser, both pretending we cared more about the cause than the free wine. She was beautiful, charismatic, and had this raw energy that made every room feel electric. She made me believe I was more than I was. We'd been through so much together, long nights, planning our future, scraping by on takeout and hope, crying over setbacks, and laughing about how broke we were. And now, we finally had a chance to start clean. I trusted her with everything. My secrets, my fears, my bank account. That was my first mistake. After the inheritance came through, Lena insisted we take a short trip, just the two of us. "We need a break before life gets busy," she said, eyes sparkling. I agreed. We went to a resort near the coast, nothing extravagant, but peaceful. The morning we were supposed to leave, I woke up alone. At first I thought she'd gone for a walk, but as the hours dragged on, the silence started screaming. Her phone went straight to voicemail. The front desk said she'd checked out earlier, alone. Then I noticed my phone was missing. My wallet. The safe in the room was empty. I scrambled to the lobby, demanding security footage. I'll never forget the cold thud in my chest when I saw it, Lena, smiling, dragging 2 suitcases behind her. Getting into a cab like it was any other day, I stood there, numb, watching the woman I loved disappear with every penny I had, every dream I'd ever spoken out loud. In that moment, I didn't even feel rage. Not yet, just a heavy, hollow kind of disbelief. Like my soul had been scooped out and replaced with silence. No note, no explanation, just gone. I sat on the edge of that hotel bed, staring at the empty space where she used to sleep, and wondered if I had ever really known her at all. The first few weeks after Lena vanished were a haze. I stopped eating. I stopped sleeping. I'd sit in the dark with my phone clenched in my hand, refreshing her last known social media accounts, hoping for any clue, any movement, any post, any tag. Nothing. It was like she had scrubbed herself from the earth. Vanished without a trace. I went back to our apartment. Well, what was left of it? Half the furniture was gone. So were the photo albums, her clothes, her laptop, even the coffee mug she always used that said "Not today, Satan." It was like she had taken a vacuum to every part of my life and sucked herself out, leaving only a ghost behind. The bank confirmed what I already suspected. My savings gone, all of it transferred to a secondary account that I didn't even remember opening. When I asked for more details, they showed me the paperwork. My signature was there, except it wasn't mine. I sat across from the bank manager, staring at the grainy copy of a forged signature that looked just enough like mine to pass. My hands shook. "Isn't this fraud?" I asked. The manager gave me a look like he'd seen this before. "Technically, the account is under your name. You might want to get a lawyer." I left the bank feeling like I was walking through a nightmare, with no exit. And then the phone calls started. Credit card companies, loan officers, collection agencies. Apparently, I had opened multiple lines of credit in the past 3 months, all maxed out. Luxury clothes, spa treatments, online gambling, hotel stays in cities I'd never been to. One card even had charges from Greece. Greece. We had once talked about honeymooning there. Each call was another punch to the gut. I started keeping a notebook, listing everything she had taken: money, credit, property, even my grandfather's watch. That watch was the only physical thing I had of him, and she took that too, pawned it probably. Every day I woke up choking on the weight of it. The betrayal wasn't just financial, it was personal, deep, a twisting knife. I wasn't angry. At first, I was ashamed. Ashamed I hadn't seen it. Ashamed I'd trusted her so blindly. I started wondering if our entire relationship had been a lie from day one. And the worst part, I still loved her. That sick kind of love that doesn't die just because the truth does. One night, about 2 months after she left, I was going through old pictures trying to decide if I should delete them or torture myself a little longer when I noticed something odd. A picture from our trip, taken the night before she disappeared. In the background, just barely in focus, was a man. Bald, muscular, tattooed arms. I remembered seeing him by the pool, then again at the bar. Lena had smiled at him, laughed, even. At the time, I thought nothing of it, but now, looking back, my stomach turned. I did a reverse image search, just grasping at straws. Nothing came up. I zoomed in. The man was wearing a hotel lanyard. He wasn't a guest. He worked there. The next morning, I called the hotel, pretending to be a journalist, writing a travel piece. I asked if their spa still had the same manager. The receptionist confirmed his name was Victor. Suddenly, I remembered Lena joking about how charming the massage guy was. "He's got these hands," she'd said. I thought she was being playful, but maybe she was warning me, in her own twisted way. I dug further. I started searching for employees named Victor at resorts along the coast. It was like looking for a needle in a needle stack. But obsession has its own engine. I wasn't eating or sleeping anyway. I had nothing to lose. A week later, I found an old TripAdvisor review. Someone had complained about being harassed by a masseur named Victor at a different resort 6 months ago. Same build, same tattoos. I even found a blurry photo. I froze it. Was the same man? My heart started pounding. Had she been planning this with him? Was this a long con? Was I just a mark? I had no proof, just my gut screaming at me that I'd been played like a fool. The inheritance, the timing, the perfect escape, none of it felt accidental anymore. The truth wasn't in front of me yet, but I could smell it. I could feel it breathing down my neck. The puzzle pieces were starting to snap into place, and the picture they formed made my skin crawl. She didn't just leave me, she hunted me, and something told me she wasn't done. I hit rock bottom. The day I found the burner phone, it was in a shoebox, tucked away in the back of our closet, the one Lena always claimed was for her winter stuff. I was finally packing things up, trying to salvage whatever was left of my life, when I knocked the box off the shelf. The phone hit the floor, battery half out, screen cracked. At first, I thought it was just some old phone she forgot to toss. But when I plugged it in, the screen flickered to life and what I saw made my blood run cold. There were texts, hundreds of them, not to me, to him. To him. Victor. Some were flirtatious, even graphic, but others, they were colder, tactical, like two criminals mapping out a heist. "He'll get the inheritance this week. Don't let him see the new account logins. I'll send copies of his ID soon. We'll leave the country through Malta. Flights are booked." I dropped the phone. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't just betrayal. This was calculated, premeditated. They hadn't just stolen from me, they had dismantled my life with surgical precision. Laughing the whole way, one message stood out: "He'll never see it coming. He's too soft." Soft. That word clanged in my skull like a gunshot. They'd picked me because I was kind, because I trusted, because I loved too hard and asked too few questions, and they used that against me like a weapon. But they were wrong about one thing. I wasn't soft anymore. I spent the next 2 weeks becoming someone else, someone colder, sharper. I printed every message, took screenshots. I created backups on drives, in the cloud, even mailed copies to my brother out of state. If they wanted to erase me, I'd make damn sure I was erasable. Next, I tracked down a friend of mine from college, Darren. He worked in cybersecurity and owed me a favor from way back. I showed him the burner phone, the financial records, everything I'd gathered. He didn't ask questions, just nodded and got to work. Within days, he'd traced some of the money transfers. Lena hadn't just taken my inheritance. She and Victor had used my stolen identity to open offshore accounts. They moved money through crypto wallets, shell companies, and prepaid debit cards. Classic laundering tactics, but they'd made a mistake. One of the shell companies was registered under my name, but the phone number listed on the registration, it was Victor's. Sloppy, probably an oversight during one of their rushed setups. It was enough to link them, enough to raise questions. Darren helped me file a report with the FBI's online fraud division. It would take time, they said. Maybe nothing would come of it, but at least the paper trail was there. At least now, I wasn't just screaming into the void. Then I did something I hadn't done in months. I shaved, put on a clean shirt, and booked myself on a local news segment. See, before all this, I used to do small guest spots on local finance programs giving tips for budgeting and investing. My inheritance had given me the push to launch a YouTube channel about personal finance. It had a modest following, but the people remembered me, so I called in a favor. The topic was how I lost my inheritance to a romantic scam. I didn't use their names, not yet. I told my story in broad strokes, but I showed the mess as isplord. I showed the forged documents. I even held up the burner phone like a smoking gun. The segment went viral within 2 days. Comments flooded in. People who'd experienced similar scams. People asking if I'd tracked her down. People offering help, private investigators, lawyers, even journalists. Then came the moment I didn't expect. Lena reached out. She emailed me from a burner address. No apology, no remorse, just one line. You shouldn't have gone public. You don't know what you're getting into. I stared at that message for a long time. Was it a threat? A warning? Guilt? It didn't matter, because by then, I was too far gone to stop. The pain was still there, yes, but it had become fuel. Every sleepless night, every lost dollar, every echo of her laugh in my memory, it all became momentum. I wasn't going to fight her in the shadows anymore. I was going to drag her, and Victor, into the light. But first, I needed one last thing. Proof of where they were now. And for that, I needed eyes. I hired one of the guys who emailed me after the segment aired. He specialized in tracking international movement. Within a week, he hit gold. They were in Spain, Barcelona, living under fake names. But the trail of hotel bookings, rental cars, and luxury dinners was too much to hide forever. She wasn't hiding from the world, she was flaunting it, and she never expected the man she left behind to rise from the ashes. But I was done being the broken fiancé now. I was the hunter. I landed in Barcelona on a Tuesday morning. There was something poetic about it. 6 months to the day since Lena disappeared. The city was alive, golden light bouncing off the rooftops, tourists moving like waves through cobblestone alleys. But I wasn't here for the sights. I was here for closure. The private investigator had pinpointed their location: an upscale apartment in Elborn, the kind of place with balconies draped in ivy and rent that bled you dry. Lena had always dreamed of Europe. She just hadn't mentioned she'd planned to get there on my dime. I didn't go alone. The pie, Miguel, walked beside me, his leather jacket flapping like a cape in the wind. He'd arranged everything: law enforcement contacts, legal backing through the embassy, even a translator. We weren't just two bitter exes hunting ghosts. We were armed with evidence and purpose. We waited until just after noon. That's when they usually left the building, caught on surveillance daily like clockwork, and right on schedule. There she was. Lena, looking radiant, alive, not a trace of guilt in her eyes. She laughed as she exited the building, linking arms with Victor. He looked exactly as I remembered, tattoos, smug, like a man who thought the world owed him everything. My heart thundered in my chest. For a second, I froze. Part of me still wanted to believe this was all a mistake. That she'd look up, see me, and run into my arms crying, explaining how it had all gone wrong. But then Victor kissed her, and I remembered that message on the burner phone. He's too soft. Not anymore. I stepped forward, directly into their path. They didn't notice me at first, not until I spoke. Hey Lena, miss me? She stopped mid-step. Her whole body jerked, like she'd been slapped by time itself. Her eyes widened, mouth parting just slightly. Shock, panic, and something else, fear, flashed across her face. Victor turned slowly, sizing me up like I was an insect underfoot. What the hell? She breathed. I see you made it to Europe, I said, voice calm, steady. On my inheritance. Victor stepped forward, his frame casting a shadow over me. You need to leave. No, I replied, you need to stay. For the police. And right on cue, Miguel raised his hand. Two plainclothes officers crossed the street, badges flashing. They moved fast, one to Victor, the other to Lena. She tried to run. It was instinctive, but she didn't make it far. The officer caught her by the arm, and she crumbled like a paper doll. What is this? She screamed. You have no proof. You can't. I have everything, I said, walking toward her. I pulled a folder from my bag, copies of texts, financial records, flight logs, passport forgeries, bank statements. You made me look like a fool. But I learned fast. Victor cursed in Spanish as the officers cuffed him. You're dead, man. You don't know who I am. I stepped closer, locking eyes with him. No, but I know who you are. And now the FBI does too. Lena's defiance started to melt. Her face twisted into something almost unrecognizable. I never meant to hurt you, she muttered. It was Victor. He pressured me. I loved you, I swear. Don't. I cut in. Don't pretend this wasn't you. You planned it. You laughed about it. You took everything from me. Tears welled in her eyes, but I wasn't falling for the performance this time. I'd watched her cry before, when she got caught lying, when she needed money, when she wanted me pliable. I knew those tears. They meant nothing now. You made your choice, I said. Now you get to live with it. The officers guided them both into separate vehicles. I stood there in the middle of the square, watching them disappear into traffic. I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel angry. I felt clean. Later that evening, I sat in a quiet cafe near the cathedral. Miguel joined me, sipping black coffee like it was sacrament. You did good, he said. Most people never get this far. I nodded, staring at the foam swirling in my cup. I didn't do it for revenge. No, I looked up. I did it to remind myself who I am. I needed to prove to me that I wasn't weak, that I wouldn't just sit back and be ruined. He gave a small, respectful nod. That takes strength. I took a deep breath. In one move, Lena had tried to erase me from my finances, my future, even my identity. But I hadn't let her. I fought back. And I won not with fists, but with clarity, precision, and truth. As I walked back to my hotel that night, the city felt different. Lighter, not because I had beaten her, but because I had finally reclaimed me. The fallout was swift and merciless. Within a week, news of the arrest hit international headlines. American inheritance scam ends in Barcelona takedown, read one headline. Others were harsher: Fiancée, fraud busted abroad, love, lies, and laundering. Lena's name was plastered across tabloids and financial crime blogs alike. Photos from the arrest circulated online, her in handcuffs, mascara streaked, eyes hollow. Victor wasn't spared either. His record was worse than we thought. Fraud, identity theft, international travel scams. He'd been doing this long before me. I was just the latest, and hopefully the last. The U.S. Embassy confirmed extradition proceedings. There'd be court hearings back home. Lena was charged with multiple counts of financial fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy. Victor was hit with even more cross-border charges that could keep him behind bars for decades. And yet, when I saw her mugshot on the news, I didn't feel the satisfaction I thought I would. There was no rush of vengeance, no gloating, just quiet. She looked so small, so broken. Not the fiery, manipulative woman who once owned every room she walked into. I wondered if she thought about me in that jail cell, about what we could have been if she hadn't chosen greed. Maybe not, but that was no longer my burden to carry. I returned to the States a few days later. My bank accounts were still wrecked, and I had a mountain of legal paperwork to untangle. But I had something back that mattered far more: my name, my voice, my fight. I started speaking publicly on podcasts, panels, even national morning shows, not for attention, but to help others. Romantic fraud wasn't some rare tragedy, it was everywhere. Men, women, young, old, it didn't matter. Scammers knew how to find your heart and empty your wallet right after. People listened, and more importantly, they reached out. Survivors, families, even victims who had never spoken up before. In helping them heal, I started healing too. Still, some nights were hard. I'd wake up in a cold sweat, her voice echoing in my dreams. I'd picture the smile she wore the day we met, and it would sting all over again. But then I'd remember the smile I wore the day I took my life back. Not a smile of revenge, a smile of freedom. Because the truth is, closure doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering on your own terms. And I was finally doing just that. It's strange how life has a way of rebuilding itself. When you stop clinging to what was broken. A year has passed since that day in Barcelona. Sometimes it feels like a movie I once saw. Blurry at the edges, but unforgettable at its core. I still get the occasional news update: Lena pled guilty in exchange for a reduced sentence. She'll serve time. Victor, on the other hand, wasn't so lucky. His criminal history caught up with him, and he'll likely be in prison for a very long time. I don't follow the updates anymore. I don't need to, because for the first time in my adult life, I'm not looking backward. After everything fell apart, I had to start from scratch. My finances were in shambles, my trust shattered, and my identity, both legal and emotional, was something I had to rebuild piece by piece. But piece by piece, I did. I started working with a nonprofit that supports victims of relationship-based fraud. I speak to small groups, lead workshops, help survivors understand they're not stupid or naive, they're human. Love is never the crime. Exploiting it is. That work gave me purpose, gave me peace. I also revived my old YouTube channel. What started as a few videos on financial awareness turned into something bigger. I shared my story, raw, unfiltered. I talked about betrayal, healing, rebuilding. The response was overwhelming. Messages poured in from people across the world, strangers who felt like family, all sharing the same pain, the same lessons. Somewhere along the way, that pain turned into something else. Power, not the kind that crushes others, but the kind that helps you stand when your knees are shaking. The kind that builds something honest from the rubble. I moved to a new city, a small town by the coast. Quiet, calm. I traded in the old apartment, the old habits, the ghosts. I bought a little cottage with what I had left and what I earned back. I built new routines, made new friends. Nothing flashy, just real. I'm dating again slowly, cautiously. but with open eyes and a guarded heart that still knows how to beat. Even after everything. I've learned that love without trust is like a house without a foundation. It might look beautiful, but it won't survive the storm. And I've also learned that healing isn't a destination. It's a choice. Every day, sometimes you pick it with confidence. Other days, you crawl toward it in silence, but you keep moving. Looking back, I don't regret loving Lena. I regret trusting someone who never earned it, but even that regret has faded into wisdom. A part of my story, a scar I carry, not with shame, but with pride, because scars mean you survived, and I did more than survive. I rebuilt, I reclaimed, and I finally let go. People think betrayal is the end of the story. They imagine the credits roll after the heartbreak, after the loss, after the person walks away with everything you thought was sacred. But I've learned that betrayal isn't the end, it's the beginning of a different kind of truth. The truth about who you are, when everything safe and familiar has been ripped away. The truth about the people you let close, the signs you ignored, the love you gave freely and what it cost. But more importantly, the truth about your strength. The kind of strength that doesn't roar or rage, but quietly rebuilds in the dark. I thought I was broken beyond repair, but the truth is, I was being reassembled, stronger, wiser, not colder, but sharper. I didn't lose my ability to love. I just learned to love myself first, to recognize my value even when someone else didn't, to protect what I worked for. Not just financially, but emotionally, because resilience isn't about never falling, it's about standing up bruised, wiser, and more determined than ever, not to be hardened by the pain, but refined by it. And justice, it doesn't always come with flashing lights or courtroom verdicts. Sometimes, it looks like peace, like sleeping through the night again, like laughing without bitterness, like walking away from the ruins with your head held high, knowing you didn't let the betrayal define you. If you're listening to this, and you've ever felt like a fool for trusting the wrong person, I want you to hear me clearly. You are not weak for loving. You are not stupid for believing. You are human for hoping. And you are powerful for surviving. Sometimes, the person who walked away with everything didn't really win, because they'll never know what it means to rebuild with integrity. They'll never understand the quiet kind of victory that comes from healing. I lost my inheritance, my trust, my fiancé, but I found myself. And if I had to choose between wealth built on lies or peace built on truth, I'd make the same choice every time. The next time you look at your scars, don't ask why you got hurt. Ask what they made you become.